Welcome to the Art of Real Estate. I'm your host, Debbi DiMaggio, Mastering the Art of Real Estate. I'm your host, Debbi DiMaggio. Today we are here with Chris Long. Chris is from Ottawa, Canada, and he is immigrating to Florida, and he is with Longyards Storage. Now, some people might think it's a real estate show. Why are we talking about storage? And Chris will talk about his journey. And one of the things with mastering the art of real estate, one of the takeaways from this show is anyone who has a service, product, or brand, realtor being one, whatever, a service, product, or brand, this is a good show for you to learn from all of your colleagues and business people in their various fields. So I want to bring Chris Long on.
Thanks.
Hi,
Excited to
Chris.
be here. Very good.
Great to have you here. So we're going to introduce you and then we'll dive right into your journey. Christopher Long's journey is one of grit and vision. Starting as a contractor in need of storage for the big stuff, he founded Longyards Storage, transforming a personal challenge into an international powerhouse for secure, large-scale storage solutions. Alongside his success in industrial storage, Christopher built a strong foundation in real estate, starting with multifamily investments and now focusing on heavy industrial acquisitions. As the driving force behind Longyard Storage, Christopher is committed to empowering contractors like himself. Through strategic licensing and partnerships, he provides the tools and training needed to help them become better business owners and achieve financial freedom. From a single yard in Ottawa to leading a global brand, Christopher's journey inspires others to think big and act boldly and succeed on their terms. Now, Chris, you seem a little young to me and you've done a lot.
Yeah.
That's the first.
Yeah.
And so, did you go to college before you got into this?
Yeah. So I started off as a carpenter, and I had a daughter young, so there was no party life. It was like straight to work, straight to the grind, right? Like
Right.
19. All right. It's diapers and it's responsibilities. So I guess I am young, but the time put in has been a while. But yeah, started off as a carpenter, as an apprentice. Got my ticket, got licensed, got into real estate, started buying houses, converting them to duplexes, and then the opportunity of long yards popped up where the need for storage merged with my real estate expertise, and that's what started the first location. But yeah, I started off as a builder and just went from there.
Wow. And so, was your family in this business as well, or was this something that you just started?
No, I had nobody like really in the family to look up for real estate. It was just like bootstrapped. I was lucky enough to always have the mindset to find coaches and advisors around me. Not knowing what I don't know, I just, I started off selling chalk bars as a young kid, and I learned quickly like knock on the door, and if someone says no, the next door will have an opportunity. And so it's just been like that. No one's ever given me a road. I've just been paving the path, even to this day. Like being the CEO of a new company, it's just the same concept. It's like it's a little bit of a dark area in front of me because it's still unknown with markets and whatnot, but same concept applies. So right from the beginning, there's not much been help, but there's people out there willing to help. You just got to ask.
Right, right. So you started in contracting and then you started buying properties, and then where was your first storage?
Yeah, so it's in our cold capital right now of Ottawa, Ontario, Canada. So when people say real estate, there's different sections, as everybody knows, but traditionally, like self storage is more categorized as commercial real estate. So
Right.
for the viewers and listeners, this would be like more commercial real estate. But the first location I bought was in Ottawa. I bought it for 470,000. I bootstrapped it, put around 700,000 into it. Not long after, it's worth 3.6. Now it's worth over
Wow.
5 million. And that one deal literally created financial freedom. And I was like, oh my God, the light bulb went off when I was building it, and the light bulb went off again. Like, I got to go big with this, which is what inspired me to come to the US and, just do the same for many people. And that's my mission now.
Well, congratulations. That is pretty impressive. And how many storage units, just for people who might want to emulate what you've done? So, how many storage units did you start with on this first project? And then how many did you build it to grow?
Right. So it started off a bit like organic. I mean, it was a little bit of a newer concept. So no investors would get behind me, and everybody thought I was crazy. So the first thing
Wow.
was like, I just bootstrapped it to start off with a small section of yards. So just for listeners, like, what is long yards? It's not self storage. It's contractor yards, and it's basically like,
Oh, okay. I didn't get
yeah,
that.
yeah,
Okay.
it's a fenced-in compound yard inside of a property. So I got a 10-acre facility in Canada, and it's cut up into around 67 small to medium sized yards for contractors, and that's what it is. It's a fenced-in yard. Bring power, camera, office, and a container. So my first location is 10 acres with 67 yards.
Wow. And so does one person do is there multiple people renting this from you, or is it one group at a time, is or are you building them for these people? For
Exactly.
the
So
different
it's a brick and mortar location, and we build them for most cases small businesses or service based businesses, which are landscapers, arborists, companies of
Oh,
that nature that need a yard space. And it's a big problem that we're aiming to solve on the market. Trying to get a yard space from 2,000 to 20,000 square feet that has security that's lit up is almost virtually non-existent. Like, if you want to go and rent land, it's an acre and above for 3 to 5 years, and it's just not secure. It's like, here it is, take it or leave it. Right? We're solving that problem. We take
oh.
land and carve it up in multiple smaller compounds, month to month leases, and we provide amenities as well. That's pretty much
So
Longyards in a
you have
nutshell.
to secure. Okay, so I'll walk. I'm very visual, so I'm going to break
Yeah.
it down. So I'm real estate agent, of course, 35 years. So the landscaper. So there's people who own those where all the landscaping, the landscapers go for their trees and their everything. So you would buy that property. You would have it fenced in. You would make it so it has electricity or whatever, water, whatever it needed. And then you'd provide lighting and then also security on top of that?
Yeah, I mean, an element of security. We don't have someone there full time, but just to complete that circle, the visual circle, it's like, think of yards 50 by 100 feet in
Okay.
a row, right? So that landscaper now has his own yard that really he just needs for his space. He doesn't need anything much bigger, and getting a one unit like a boat and RV facility or outside storage is not enough. So that's the gap. But to visually block it in, it's a completely fenced in area with, you could have a camera in your own yard to watch all your stuff at once. You can have power. You can have a container for storing your goods. But that's it in a nutshell. It's that Yeah, that's who our client is, and that's how we operate.
So, and how many do you have in Ottawa right now?
I have the 110-acre location in Ottawa. Once that was a success, I was like, I'm getting out of Canada. So I'm yeah, I was like, that's good enough. I don't need to do more. It worked. And now, full time in the States. And we have 6 locations ready to launch in the spring and the summer. And then we have about another 6 that are in negotiation. And we have a good pipeline going behind that. So we're just gearing to scale right now.
Wow, I've got to introduce you to another guest who buys land. It's called Land Sharks, and he buys land. So you guys might, and he sells it too. So you guys, I'll connect the two of you. And so the one that you did in Ottawa, is it all different? Like landscapers might use it. Are there different businesses within the big 10 acre parcel? Different businesses?
Yeah, so we're over 90% occupied, and of that 67 yards, I mean, we have a variety of small businesses. So it's not just one avatar of a client. It's
Okay.
a growing, thriving, small business community. We have a lady who has a kennel, right? We have people that sell and cut up barrels for gardening equipment. Like, it's really cool to see. You kind of have a thought process of, you're like, oh, I know who would use this, and then you cut the ribbon, and then you get all sorts of people in there that you never would have imagined,
Right.
and it's really neat. It's really neat because it's almost like a small business incubator, and then so you
Yeah.
have people kind of on the way up, and then you have people that are more seasoned coming in, and then you have
Right.
logistic companies that just need extra space. The demand, business 101 is supply and demand. And
Right.
whether it's self storage, multifamily, you got to make sure you got enough people in that area to fulfill the need, right? There is
Right.
such a need and such a shortage throughout the Canada and the US, and it's not an easy problem to solve. People are like, oh, this makes sense. It's simple because I make it look easy, but it is really difficult to find the right space, know the avatars, Also trying to invest $1 million to $2 million in a piece of dirt. Do you want to cross your
Right.
fingers, or do you want, So there's a lot to it, but going from the client right to the dirt, it's a journey all the way, in between.
Well, it's awesome. Yeah, I'd never heard of it, but I mean, you've created this community too. I mean, I bet those vendors or those businesses are all very close. So you've created this community for these people, and I'm sure they support one another. So it's so inspiring. I just think it's so great. Yeah, you said storage, I was thinking storage units. I didn't put it together this way. So
Yeah.
it's very exciting. That's very cool. So you're launching there now, and you're where in Florida, so people know where you are. Where are you in Florida?
So I'm located just outside of Tampa in Brandon, Florida. Our closest location to launching is in Winter Haven, which is in Polk County, which is one of the fastest growing counties in the United States. So a really good growth area. Just
Okay.
yeah. So I'm close to the heat. I'm loving Tampa.
Yeah. So how did you identify the gap in the market that led to long yard storage?
Yeah, it was me having a need for it, and then also I had a good coach who was kind of like mentoring me at the time. So it was a few light bulbs that went off at the same time with the opportunity that made it all work. But that's pretty much it. It was so funny. I mean, my wife would have family come down all the time, and we would just have visitors. And I had a 2 acre property. I'm in a bit of a rural area when I lived in Ottawa, but I still had 4 trailers. I had a skid steer at one point and materials. And it doesn't matter how many times I tried to keep my driveway presentable, it just didn't look like it because of all my equipment. And my garage, it was like a battle trying to keep all my construction materials like organized. And I was like, there's just got to be a better way. I don't need a 1 acre lot. I don't need a full warehouse. I just need a small yard that's secure.
Okay.
Why doesn't this exist? And so, me being me, I'm kind of like sometimes more guts than brains. I'm like, all right, if it doesn't work, I'm going to try this. And sometimes that's how it has to start, because if you overthink, you're just
Right.
like, and so the concept was simple. If I need it, somebody else does. And then sure enough, I went all in, threw spaghetti against the wall, and it stuck. And that's that's how it started.
That's awesome. I've been really obsessed with listening to masterclass, and I was listening to Mark Cuban, my second time listening to his masterclass, and his thing is always about if there's a need. He finds where there is a need, and you clearly found there was a need because your wife was mad at you for having a mess of all what supplied the family with their lifestyle, but and now you took it off the property so you can live, you don't have to live in your workspace, let's say.
Yeah.
So that's really incredible. So you definitely followed Mark Cuban's advice and you filled a need and you took a risk as well. What challenges did you face while scaling from a single yard to an international storage business, and not even from the United States, and still immigrating here?
Right. I went from like a small to medium sized contractor to a real estate developer, franchisor in another country, all in a short period of time. So the list of challenges that came along with that were definitely long. um, so yeah, I mean, there was just a lot. I don't even know where to start. Where do you want me to start with that one?
I know. I guess let's start with, how does one, come here from Canada? I mean, there was you're bringing a family, and what sort of hoops did you have to go through personally and then business wise?
Yeah. So it basically started off. Oh, that was tough. So just getting to the U.S. Like first of all, my wife and I were talking about it for a while, and it was the time where we just made the decision. We're just like, okay, we had enough, and it was like 6 weeks. 6 weeks by the time we took the decision to actually
Wow.
leave, and my daughter was 6 weeks old, our
Oh
youngest
God.
daughter. So it wasn't. It was like talking about it, but there was so many things that just happened where we're just like, okay, we're done with Canada. There's a lot of things that lined up at once.
Yeah.
So there wasn't much, like we were literally driving to Florida, and at the time we couldn't even drive. We had to take a private jet to get across the border because we weren't even allowed to leave Canada. So
Why? Why?
because Canada is not the friendliest place people think of it sometimes. Let's
Oh,
just
I
say
had
that.
no idea.
Yeah. And so just getting across the border was a challenge. And then we had to find a place while we were driving, right? It was just insane. And then
Wow.
making immigration work, because the beautiful thing about storage is it doesn't require much staff. So I had to figure out a way to create jobs while immigrating. So then it's like, okay, now I need to create a real estate development company and a management company and be vertically integrated to satisfy the immigration. Also, one of the other challenges was I couldn't go back to Canada during the process. So I kind of like, Anthony Robbins says, you want to get to the island, burn the ships. Well, quite literally, I burned the ships to get to the island. And I could
Wow.
not even go back to Canada. So, I was like, okay, I'll manage this part time and maybe I can visit if something happens. Well, when you don't have a choice to go back, you get creative and you figure things out. So, and then
Wow.
the other part is like you lose, almost a third of your wealth. It's relative, but not many people know. It's like your dollar just compresses coming across.
Right.
So, and I was expecting 1.2 million from a whole bunch of different, partnerships and liquidations. I did, just the plans didn't go as planned. I got a third of that, first world problems, but
Yeah.
it
Right.
was like
Right.
thing after thing after thing. I can go on. I can make 30 podcasts just about everything to how that started to where I am
That's
now. And
okay. Keep going. We have time. We have time to hear your story.
yeah, but yeah, it's been a journey. It has not been easy. And we just finally got like 5 years. After 2.5 years, we got a 5 year E2 visa.
Okay.
So finally, I can kind of like park the immigration stuff and focus on Longyards more, which is a great feeling because that has been like a mental anchor for a while because it's kind of like a little scary sometimes. You don't know what's going to happen, and you could just be sent back. And you're like, and you got all these, seeds planted, and you want to
Right.
water them. So it's yeah. The immigration's been fun, but hey, when you believe, you're all in, right?
Right. Absolutely. Well, that I can. It seems very scary. You just going through that, and are your does your family or friends, are they able to come? Have they come and visited and come down, and you can't go back at all, right?
Well, right now with the E2, yeah, it's a little bit easier to go back and
Oh, you
forth. It was during the transition process. It's
Okay.
still like a process. It doesn't really
Right.
end. You know, I tell my wife it would have been easier if we just met Americans and got married.
Right. Exactly.
Plan
So
B. No,
how
I'm joking.
when will you be an official resident? How long? I mean, what's the steps for that?
Yeah, I think I'm gonna go to like the green card, but I don't know if I actually want to become full dual citizen just because of the
Oh, okay.
tax consequences. Like
Oh,
that stays with you
sure.
no matter what, and I have more tax advantages actually having a Canadian citizen and having a U.S. green card right now. So I'm still exploring all of that. So, but my agenda is not really to become a full U.S. citizen. I think with the green card, I'll be good.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
And with that, can you go back and forth?
Yeah. No, with this time, it's fine to go back and forth. It was during
Oh,
when you're submitting paperwork and you're waiting. You're sometimes in this, depending on your immigration process, in this like purgatory area, and they're like, you can't go back and forth. And that
yeah.
got extended from like 6 months to a year because the paperwork was so delayed that
Right.
I couldn't leave during that time, and so yeah, that
Right.
made it complicated. But yeah, it's not
Yeah.
it's a little bit of a unusual circumstance. I mean, I can travel pretty freely right now. I just
Right.
visited the family in December. And to answer your
Right.
previous question, yeah, we have family and friends that come down and visit us. I mean, for one, they get a free guest room in Florida, not far from
Right.
Disney, and my wife's a great cook, so everybody loves that.
Everyone
So,
likes to
anyways,
come down.
yeah, people are happy to
Awesome.
come
All
down.
right. We are going to take a quick commercial break, and we will be right back with Chris and Longyard Storage and his exciting story of immigrating to the United States and creating an international company. So thank you so much. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Mastering the Art of Real Estate. I'm your host, Debbi DiMaggio, and we are here with Chris Long out of Florida. He's come from Ottawa and he is starting or continuing to blossom his international company. And so, Chris, how do licensing and partnerships differ from traditional franchising, and why did you choose this model?
Right, because partnerships, the deals are very far and few between. So we want good, strong partners in the area that can capitalize on it. Franchising, there's a lot of pros and cons. And then we actually started off franchising. We have franchisees, but with time we switched over to a partnership model just because the deals are so hard to get across the finish line that we actually figured let's change this a little bit, and we work alongside the partner. We figured the franchisees need a lot of support anyways. We might as well work with them and become a partner and
Like,
actually put our own money into the deal. So that's what we started doing, and it's just more of a profit share rather than a royalty, and a lot of people prefer that. So
yeah,
I let the market tell me. It's sometimes you got to try things and figure out what the market likes and responds to best.
right.
Truthfully, that's what led us into partnerships, and we went from 2 years to four franchisees to 5 months to 17 partners as soon as we made
Wow.
that change. So I think it's definitely been a great response from the marketplace.
Yeah, I do think people want to be partners and they feel like they're equals as opposed to you just taking money in in a franchise situation. and,
It's a little
and
bit.
and you can help them grow and you're both growing together. So of those 17, are they in Florida or are they in different places?
No, we're all over the states right now. So
Okay,
yeah, Tennessee, Texas, Georgia. I mean, obviously Florida's big. It's really big right now.
right.
Got all sorts of states. Yeah, it's really kind of just blown up in a good way.
That's so exciting. Okay, so I'm always nuts and bolts how to get people from A to Z. So if
Yeah.
someone said I referred someone to you and I said, Chris, this person is interested in partnering with you, can you walk us through what that would look like for them?
Yeah, actually, we created a kind of a unique selling proposition called the "Go Long or Go Home." So long yards, go long or go home, kind of like what I did. But what it
Yeah,
does, it's really simple because a lot of people have so many questions and they just don't
yeah,
understand it. Even though it sounds simple, they're like, "Oh, wow, how do you do this?" So I just figured, look, let's just make something simple. So it's $5,000, and it's a go long, go home guarantee for 30 days. In those 30 days, we give you some of our tools. We give you our underwriting IP, which we created. We give you what's called our acquisition assembly line. So we basically show you how to understand commercial real estate, right? And we give you a territory, and we're like, okay, here's how it works. Here's our buy box. Here's an agent, and then here's how to find a deal. And then if you don't like what we offered, look, we'll give you the 5 grand back, no questions asked, within 30 days. So that's how it starts. And then most people, they're like, I love what you're doing. And they stay. And then, we basically find a deal because at that point, they actually know how to understand commercial real estate. And, because there's it's a new language to a lot of new people, right? Cap
right,
rates, future market value, the underwriting. And it's not just what we need, it's what the bank needs to hear and understand as well. The other
right.
part is we actually got approved by SBA. So we're on the directory of the federal government, Longyards Storage being approved by SBA, which is huge because
Wow,
people need that for lending. So
right.
yeah, we have the financial backing from the lender. We have the know-how, and then we also, so we want to teach people. It's more about like, here's a partner. It's more like this is how everything works. We want you to have complete confidence in everything happening. So it's not just a one-time deal. We want to do this over and over again with the right people.
And so, are some of these were all these people in real estate before, or are they just mom and pops? And how did they find you? And how were they the right people?
That's a good
How do you
question.
know they
So
were right?
we have a barrier to entry. I mean, we have a questionnaire. We need to make sure that there's certain qualifications. You need to be liquid. You need to have good credit score. Ideally, you have a little bit of real estate experience. In the best case, commercial real estate experience. But we've built this so like a UFO can learn how to run a long yards. So it's really like a cookie cutter assembly line. We have a roadmap checklist that literally walks you through every step, when, the priority level. So, if you have a good W 2 job, and there's a lot of people that are LPs, they're just investing in real estate deals, but they want to be more, right? So
Mm-hmm.
we fit that box as well. We're like, all right, we've given you the system, we'll give you the know how, we're beside you the whole time. And a lot of people would prefer that than just throwing their money at deals. So, whether you're a W 2 or a seasoned, experienced commercial real estate investor, we're happy to partner with you as long as the location makes sense that you're in.
And then do you send them out and say, this is what kind of properties we're looking for, and this is kind of the areas? And do you give them an idea of where to start looking for this property?
Yeah, exactly. So we actually have like, in terms of a funnel, we have our TAM, and then it goes zoning, local building requirements, feasibility, buy box. So there's a whole funnel before, when you start the actual search process. But yeah, they have the tools and the know-how, and we give them an agent as well that's familiar with what's
Mhm.
referred to as IOS, industrial real estate. But once they go through our program, they literally have the eyes and the know-how to find a deal, but they're also protected in their area, so no one else can do a long yards in their backyard. So
Okay.
that's really good as well.
Well, it's very exciting. I think that is just, it's so cool. It just seems like it's a, not that it's a absolutely home run for everyone, but you really do give, you partner with them. So you put your money where your mouth is. So it's just, it seems like a great model for someone wanting to get involved in that. What are some trends you're seeing in industrial real estate, and how are you positioning long yards for the future?
Yeah, it's really neat because like we are a bit of a trailblazer. So iOS self storage was very mom and pop owned. In the last 30 years, it's like 30 to 40% has become institutionalized. You see a lot of uh, operators buying mom and pop self storage, doing roll ups, and then selling it to REITs or whatnot. So we're kind of like that before. So we're in a new fresh market like Blue Sea. There's a lot of mom and pop operators, and we see bigger money coming in. You see Altera Group and I think Zenith are two large players that have raised upwards of over $500 million to buy iOS. So there's a lot of money moving into this marketplace, and there's not much. I'm not seeing much value add. It's more like let's just buy what this is, and then we'll just that's it. Like just nothing. Where we are going in, we're doing a value add play, and we were able to increase the revenue and increase the NOI, increase the market value. So the trend is like it's a hot asset class, but I'm not seeing many people really adding much value, especially to the land component, which is really unique in where we're focused on.
Right. Um, so how are you, oh, where was my question? Empowering contractors. How are you empowering contractors with this model?
Right. So there's a few layers to that. First of all, it's providing a need to them that doesn't really exist. So the more foundational elements that these guys have, the easier it is for them to run their business, which is easier for them to serve the community. They don't need a heavy burden of a big lease payment for a long time when their business is adapting and things are changing. So that's one of the first things we're doing. One of the second things we're actually working on implementing is like a membership program. So when people sign up to the Long Yards community, we're actually going to be integrating trailers and offices that you can rent by the day or by the week, but you get it at a discount. You get it at almost a 50% discount compared to the market rate. Because if you're renting a yard with us, we figured we're going to help you as much as we can, right? So it incentivizes contractors and helps them at the same time. So and then with the offices and the containers. And there's another element too that part of the future. We have phases we're building out to, but with a community program, it's everything that our contractors are learning that helps them excel in their business, whether it be a sales process using the right CRM. We want to teach this in modules and then make it public to all of our contractor clients. So they have these free modules like, hey, look, here's 50 modules. Here's how to price the job. Here's the partnership opportunities in your area, and then it just creates like thriving opportunities. So there's many levels for it to grow into. For now, simplicity is key. Keep it simple. That's what we're working on. But as the model evolves with more locations, we definitely want to keep that foundational element of supporting the small business in our back, in the front of what we're doing.
Right. So how are you, so you're in so many different places, and so how are you reaching all these contractors? I mean, you're in Florida, you're in Tennessee, you're everywhere. So how are you, well, two questions. One is how are you staying organized because you're super busy, and that goes for, anyone in real estate or anyone who has an independent contractor. How are you keeping organized? And then secondly, how are you reaching all these contractors to help them, because it seems like a really great way to help these contractors and empower them. I love that.
Yeah, right. So there's almost two questions there. One of them would be like our what we call our go to market launch, and I'll start with being organized. Being organized, going from a contractor to a CEO of a company that is now scaling. We need key players. We have executive teams and team members, and that's been a learning curve in itself, right? Because being before, my organization was a job site. It's like, all right, here's my house. I got 10 projects. That's one thing. But now we've resorted heavily on a lot of technology. Some people have Asana. We're using ClickUp. And so between our project management tools that are like ClickUp with our pipelines to track a project, we also have a roadmap. And what this is a checklist for every single item that you need to do from A to Z. And every location has its own roadmap, and it has who's responsible and who's accountable. And that just, you just go through, the checklist one line item at a time. And it's very visual. It's very easy to follow, easy to understand, and it keeps everybody aligned and accountable. Um, so that's what we're using for organization. And honestly, I think the simplicity is to keep it simple as much as you can.
Okay. Yeah.
And then go to market. I mean, there's a whole bunch of steps that we're doing. It's not a one size fits all. This is a new market. Not a lot of people know we exist. Not a lot of people know this product exists. It's not necessarily, it's a pain point, but there's not a known solution. So, it's not like people are Googling storage yard near me, right?
Right.
So we have to get our message in front of people, and then there's a whole sales process behind it as well. So it's a little different than what most people are used to, and that's what
Right.
that's why we're building a business around it, because we're good at doing it.
That's awesome. That's it's yeah, I know because the name you just think well anyone who hears the name storage you probably think of storage units. So it's but yeah, what a great concept. So we're going to take a quick commercial break. We'll be right back with Chris Long and we will continue on. Thank you. Welcome back to Mastering the Art of Real Estate. I'm your host, Debbi DiMaggio, and we are here with Chris Long. And so, Chris, let's talk about. I just think this is a really exciting niche, obviously, because it's new. And so you're like, this is groundbreaking. So I think it's so exciting. So let's go. How do you raise capital? First of all, you have quite a few places. And I know you started small and it grew very quickly. So how are you are in the United States, you have multiple locations throughout the United States. So how are you raising capital to purchase all of that land in these different locations?
Right. Well, a great question. So it's a little bit unique because we're like a hybrid of a business and real estate, right? So on one world, what we've been doing is raising capital through like a syndication, right? Find a deal, put the partners together, go get your LPs, and that's one way. And that's more whether it's equity or debt, right? That's one way to do it. Another way I've been using, another tool I've been using to raise capital is actually leveraging from my existing properties because my loan to value is so low. I have so much equity that I can borrow at nice terms where everyone's happy and it's safe. And I can borrow the money, in terms of for bridge loans or whatnot that way.
Okay.
Another tool that we've just been going to recently use is actually doing safe agreements and going to eventually Series A funding for the business, which is a little bit different. It's more like because we have a tech component that we haven't really talked about. We're not really fully putting it out there yet, but just a
Okay.
little sneaker. We are integrating into a tech company in a bit. So, we have a lot of investors that are really interested in kind of working with us as like the whole umbrella company, let's call it. And that we're opening the doors. We had a small buy-in recently to the Longyards corporate, and then if we go to Series A, we're going to reevaluate and then do another raise to basically expand our team. So there's a few ways for us to raise capital on the real estate and the business side, but being vertically integrated and the partnership, we're actually the way I built and modeled the business is that we're pretty creative in the way that how we put our money into the deals is we do the construction. I was a general contractor for 10 years. I understand that if we're competitive with the rates and we're creative and resourceful with how we build out our locations, then I actually use that capital to put it into the deal and to line our pockets a little bit for our human capital. So between that and the existing cash flow, we're in a really comfortable position. We're very liquid right now, and we're actually making money as we grow, which is really cool.
Nice. And I'm sure. And so let's talk about one example. So you have a property, let's say in Tennessee, one of your lots and one of your yards. And how much, or how many people, or it doesn't have to be Tennessee, whichever one, let's pick one. And how much are the different tenants paying? You don't have to be specific on how much property they're getting or acres they're getting, but just give me an idea of what, if a contractor or a dog kennel or someone wanted to rent, what does it cost them? And then what did it cost to buy that land? I know you have to build it out, but what does it cost to buy the land? And then what kinds of rents are you getting?
Right. So that is a hard one to answer. I'll do my best, and using Tennessee
Yeah.
helps. Now, there's a few. So, I mean, it could vary. You can get land could be 500,000 an acre, or it could be 50,000 an acre, and there's a big gap. And it's like it's relevant to the partnership liquidity, um, also the feasibility of the project. Do the rental rates that we're projecting support the purchase price per square foot of land? And then we have the per square foot of buying, and then we actually have the usable per square foot. So just keeping it high level, there's a lot
Yes.
of formulas. It's like, okay, but for the small business, it's anywhere from 800 to $3,000 a month. I have one tenant paying me $10,000 a month, so it really varies. And on the lower side, it's anywhere from $350 a month for a small spot, right? So there's a big gap, and it fluctuates on the price too. But the challenge delays is that in some of these markets they just can't find the land, but sometimes neither can we. So it is hard, but we are creating many different solutions to the marketplace to solve this problem, and we have to get extremely creative. So to answer your question, it's varying on both ends of the spectrum by a long shot.
I can imagine. And so so you have a lot of places. There's a lot of tenants, it sounds like. Do you know about how many tenants you have?
Well, in Ottawa, like as an example, because we have containers as well, we have about 73 tenants on one location. And I do want to take a minute and mention I had two duplexes before in Ottawa, which was four tenants. I have over 70 tenants, and I have less headaches with my 70 tenants on my commercial property than I did with four with my residential portfolio.
That's where I was going with that. You actually hit the nail on the head. Those a lot of different people that you're dealing with, but is it do some issues come up? How is it? Do people who's collecting these rents on your behalf? Do you have a great team? Let's talk about your team of people who are not only collecting rents in Ottawa but throughout the United States as well. And what kind of issues? And name a few. What issues might come up with tenants? We know how it is stressful with owning real estate.
Oh yeah. I mean, okay, I'll start by saying we had one tenant that was using a flamethrower in one of our yards. And
Oh,
we just go on camera and we're like, I was getting messages from our team like, "There's a guy with a flamethrower on your property." I'm like, are we under attack? Like, what's going on right now? But he had a lineup of clients paying him to use a flamethrower, and it was part of me like I'm a half pyro. I'm like, go entrepreneur, like, but like he had a big yard and he was blowing it towards the middle. He had his fire extinguisher equipment ready to go. So like you kind of get all
what
sorts
was
of
the
stuff.
purpose though? Why was he doing that? For a
His
show
business.
or?
Yeah, it was his business. So he has a destructive business model where like he owned in Ottawa. I don't know if this is like more of a national brand, but maybe it's a startup in Ottawa. But they're called like smash it rooms. So if you're stressed out, you go into a room and you gear up and you just destroy things, right? You smash it with a baseball bat and you kick the TV in and you just kind of,
Oh my god.
yeah,
It
and it's a good
probably
idea.
exists, I just don't know, but wow.
So, well, it's not only just for small stuff; it's for big stuff as well. So it's kind of like the trucker show where you're driving over, an old car. But in any case, so he was kind of charging people whatever he was to use the flamethrower for 5 or 10 minutes, and but they're not illegal in Canada. And I never thought to put in my lease agreement, don't use a
No
flamethrower
fire.
in your yard because who would have thought about that, right? So you get stuff like that. But the most common issue, and we've only had this maybe like half a dozen times over 4 years, is people like leaving stuff in the yard when they vacate. Um,
Right,
but you just put a deposit in, and typically in most cases, what they leave is worth more than what they owe you.
right.
So that's kind of the biggest thing. And then, with technology, there's so many softwares now. My
Right.
favorite part of the business is that when they don't pay, they get locked out automatically, and then they're chasing me, and I'm
To
not
get it.
chasing them.
Oh,
Right?
that's so there's one main lock on the to get
Yeah,
into
yeah, the
the yard.
gate, it's all
They
integrated. It's you
lock
can scan. There's a QR code right near our gate. You scan it, you upload your credit card, make your payment. Get all your information. But if you don't make the payment by the fifth day, you automatically get locked out, and then we charge you for it. So we don't like doing it, but it's the
right,
process. It's a business at the end of the day.
right, right.
So yeah, I mean, with good technology, good people, good systems, and the first location was like a prototype. We've learned a lot. I bootstrapped it. We're getting better
Yeah,
with every location we launch, and we've rebuilt the first one 5 times and redid our lease 12 times. So it's
wow.
been a learning process every day because again, it's what you assume versus what in reality actually works, and there's a big gap between the two of them.
Right.
So yeah,
You're
it's
always learning. Yeah, what are some things that you might put in a lease other than now no flame throwing? Like
well,
there, I mean, you must just, it's endless, right? People could do anything you don't think about them doing.
exactly. One little thing is like if you invite somebody else to the yard, they're your responsibility. So if you give out your code and we look at the camera so we can see the gate activity, who's using the code when, and it wasn't you, well, it doesn't matter. If you gave that code out to your friend and they caused mischief or damaged something, then it's on you. It's just one of the many examples of things we've
Right,
learned. Even the way we construct our facility was in a way that can be repaired and modified quite easily.
right.
But yeah, there's been a lot of little addendums added. It's still a simple lease because we want to keep it
Yeah.
simple, but it's got to be fair. And then you have
And
the
then,
zoning. Yeah.
right. And then do you have insurance for the whole property, and do they have individual insurance, or how does insurance work for something like this?
Right, you got it. So we have insurance for the whole property, which is, by the way, extremely cheap. That's one great thing I want to mention about my business, because
Okay.
in a lot of markets, like insurance for multifamily, it's like astronomical.
Crazy.
Also, property tax is very high as well, right? We don't worry
Mhm.
about that. We don't have high insurance and we don't have high property tax because we're dirt. It's as simple as
Right,
it could be. What's going to happen? My crushed stone's going to light on fire, you know?
right,
So,
right.
yeah, for property tax, it's really low. And then if we suspect during the due diligence that a tenant is going to be operating or more active in the yard than others, we do ask
Mhm.
for a copy of their insurance, part of their onboarding.
Yeah, I would think you'd want a copy. Well, you should. You should have a copy of everyone's insurance. Kind of like when we rent out properties, we have them get content insurance. Um, and I would assume so their insurance, I would assume, would be covering their belongings, whether it's the kennel and their dogs or the landscaper and their trees or whatever it is, and equipment and do they have like do they are there different containers? So if there's a contractor, does he have a lockable space that you provide? If you know a locked storage on the property, or how does that work?
Right. So we have what we call long boxes and long offices. So they're containers that fold and unfold. They're from Europe. They're a little different than a shipping container. They're more modern, just more sleek looking, more
Very
on
cool.
point with the brand. But we're not limiting them. If they have existing offices or containers and they want to put that into their yard, by all means, right? As long as it meets the zoning requirements, because they have their
Right.
own criteria of what works and what doesn't. So fitting in that box. But yeah, we're gonna try to be as accommodating as possible. But a lot of these guys, that's the cool thing about my tenant base, right? It's not like a princess tenant. Like it's a contractor who's a blue
Right.
collar that if something
Yeah.
happens, like they'll roll up their sleeves and they get things done. So
Right.
these are my clients. These are the guys we like working with. They're not like sensitive to something small. Like they just get it done. They're used to it. Honestly, we kind of have like compared to what's on the marketplace, a bit of a Cadillac product to begin with. So
Hmm.
they're just happy to be there to know that their stuff's secure. There's eyes on the place,
Right.
and they look after their own, which is really cool.
That's nice. So how are you've got a obviously it sounds like you've got a great team and you've got lots of tech and ways to be organized and how you from people being able to access the yard and get locked out if they're not being if they're not paying and you're spread throughout the country. So how did you pick your let's say your executive team or the team of people and how many people are on your executive team, not counting the partners, but the people who help you day to day run your business?
Yeah, so we have 4 employees plus a lot of like assistants. So it's a small team, but honestly, the more I want to keep it small and keep it simple,
Right.
the best of my
Yes.
ability. Um, and how I chose them was actually it was like my number one fans. It was one of my first investors became is one of our executive partners. He loved the brand. I was putting money in it. He's like, Chris, I just want to see this business grow, whatever I can do. And then when we had enough work that we can get dialed in, we're like, let's bring you on. And also another big part for growing companies is integrating EOS. EOS is a very good system. And even if you're a smaller company, you have level 10 meetings, you have your 1, 3, 5 year goals, you have it broken down in quarterly rocks, you have your issues list, and your team is in complete alignment, with the organization chart. So even with a small team, we have our dedicated seats, we have our roles and responsibilities, we have our KPIs that we need to work towards to hit our metrics. So, it kind of starts from the top with great, it starts with the vision, but obviously you need the integration. And we have the integrator as well. And between the visionary, the integrator, and the seats that we're filling using EOS, that's just been a great way for a small company to stay on track, especially in a virtual world where everyone's behind their computers. It's not
Hmm.
like, everyone's in our office. We don't need an office. We're spread out across, the map. So
Right.
that's how we've been doing. We've been choosing people that love the brand, who's been following me for a while, and also, they need to care a lot. That's
Hmm.
foundational. But
Yeah.
with a big vision, you get really good people, and they just want to help. And some of them have their own greedy mindset. Well, not greedy, like everyone wants to make money. That's great. But with a big enough vision, you can do that and you can
Right.
make everyone, wealthy while you make it work for everybody at the same time. So I think that was very foundational at the beginning. Like choose a vision that people can get behind and then you'll get the right people.
Right. Okay. No, I love it. And then how are you choosing your partners, or are they finding you, and or is it a little bit of both? But how have you been growing with these different properties all throughout the different states?
Yeah, I do like no marketing. So I need to be much better at that. But here's the thing, people are finding me. So
Okay.
that's a good problem to have. Like I jump on a few podcasts like this, but most of the time I'm just, grinding away. We're a small team with a lot of work, and people hear about us through a podcast or at a local networking event. We go to like family office events or whatnot, and people just love what we're doing. They want to get involved, and that's how partners are finding us.
That's awesome. So no marketing, just someone calls you up and says, "I want to get involved. Can we partner up?"
Yeah, brokers. I keep hearing it. This broker talked about your business. I'm like, so I have people go through a questionnaire so we can track where our leads are coming from.
Right.
We do like a little bit of organic YouTube, but like, yeah, if I were to crank that wheel up, which we are planning on because we're planning on
Yeah.
scaling, then I'm sure I'll have more of a dialed in answer. But it's kind of like the best way. You find good people that find you through organic, and they're motivated because they're willing to reach out and dig a little bit. So yeah, that's been what's working right now.
Absolutely. No, that's incredible. That is definitely the best way to grow. It's just and I mean it's not like when we're selling a house, it's kind of one at a time, but you're working on each project. So how long does it take? So let's say we find the land here in California and we're going to partner up. How long does it take to get up and running? Walk me through the steps from beginning to end. And
Okay, well, there's two paths. There's either you buy dirt or you lease dirt. Now, what's unique is we don't have to buy it; we can lease it and we can arbitrage, right?
okay.
So now that's much quicker. As an example, there's a property in Jacksonville that we're doing a lease on. It's a smaller property, around 3 acres. The total build out is around 350,000. So with SBA, it's 10%, $35,000. So our partnership, that's $17,500 each. That's not a crazy amount, right?
Yeah.
Now, this thing is going to net profit cash flow every month, $14,000 for 10 years. So that's and the timeline by the time that gets up and running is anywhere from, by the time you sign the lease, by the time depending on the commencement, it could be anywhere from 3 to 6 months. And then you have a lease up period, right? And that depends on the size, everything else. But we're very selective. So, yeah, that, in under a year, you can be in that position where you reached out and now you're cash flowing, and that could be it. And the first deal, I'm bringing in 42,000 a month for my first location right now. So,
That's amazing. That is so exciting. And where was my question? Where are your oh, how many, back to the lease? You lease and you own some. How many do you lease and how many? I didn't think about the leasing option, but how many do you lease and how many do you own as part
right.
in your partnerships?
So we actually started off just trying to buy real estate while trying, but we actually pivoted mostly to leasing because
Okay.
it's a lot quicker, it's a lot simpler,
Yes.
and the cash flow is a lot higher. So right now it's about 80% lease, 20% buy, only
Okay.
because we're doing off market direct outreach, and if we get a low hanging fruit, that's just a really good opportunity. We're going to pursue it, but actively we are pursuing lease opportunities, and most of our partners we're saying go in the lease direction. It's quicker, it's easier, and it's just speed to market.
It is so crazy. Things always happen. Serendipity happens all the time. I'll be having a conversation. All of a sudden, my mind, as I'm talking to you, is like shooting in five different directions. So I don't sell land. I'm selling a lot right now. It's been a year because where we live in the Berkeley Oakland Hills is it's so hard to do anything, to sell a lot and all the things that go along with it. And it's a small lot. But so I got a call from a past client and he said, my father lives in this area, and I don't really do the area, but I said, I'm happy to comp his house. And then he said, well, then when I spoke to the father, he said, well, I have all this land, and I definitely don't deal in land, one lot here and there, but not land. So he has all this land. And so when we get off the podcast, I'm going to send you the information. I would I'll go into business with you on it, but I don't know how to sell it. I don't know how to read it, what it's zoned for, if it's the right property, but it came to me. And so I'm going to send you all the details and see. And it is in a good area where there's a lot of building that goes on. So I would imagine it would be a great place if the topography is right for you. So that's just crazy. If this was to happen, it would be absolutely very cool.
Well, that's the
So
funny. Yeah,
what,
yeah, yeah. I reach
what's
out on podcasts, and then yes,
I guess that's how it happens. You're just sitting here having a conversation. And I'm also thinking my son, who works with us now for the last 3 years, he is, I don't know how old you are, but this sounds like it would be very interesting for him to get involved in. So what does the land need to look like? Is there just a basic idea, what the land has to look like, or where it has to be? If you're saying, Debbie, go find me some land, what would that look like?
yeah. So starting at the top, it's like definitely we have our own buy box internally, but the first thing you got to be mindful of is the zoning. All right, and the zoning can be very easy and it can be extremely difficult. And then we
Right.
have tiers of land on our feasibility tool. To keep it simple, it's like tier 4 is raw dirt that you need to entitle or develop, versus tier 1 that's like ready to go, hit the ground running. And there's a
Okay.
whole world in between, right? So it goes zoning, and then it has to meet the buy box. It has to meet the demographics, the income, the growth, the proximity, everything else. So there's a lot of different check boxes that we need to go through to make sure it's going to work. But to keep
Mhm.
it simple, I mean, if you're close to a main artery going in and out of the city, the zoning matches probably 3 acres minimum, right zoning. In a lot of
Okay.
cases, that's probably going to meet it. But then it needs to meet your, all the utilities, your minimum net rentable square footage, the lenders. And that's another thing, is like getting financing, because people don't understand this. But we as a company have SBA behind us. So um, anyways, yeah, there's a lot of layers from the land, and it's not as simple as it looks. I will tell you that.
Oh, no.
Obviously,
That's why it's
getting
nice that people could
yeah,
partner with you.
the strength of the soil. Not anyone would think of that. If the
Right.
strength of your soil is too weak, then your project cost could be no longer feasible. If the quarry is on the other side of the city, it's no longer feasible. These are just little things that you wouldn't think
Yeah.
about unless you've gone
Right.
through it, that can like quadruple the cost and time of your project. So
Right.
there's a whole checklist we go through, and that's why we create our roadmap with our partners. And it's like, look, we'll take the guessing away from you, and we put our money in it. So we
Right.
just figured it's a home run.
I think it's a great model. And Chris, I think you're exceptional. And I'm just such a mom, so I'm just proud of you, what you've done. It just seems
Thank you.
really very cool. So how could we help you? Any last words before we wrap it up now at the top of the hour? How could we help you grow your business?
Yeah, if anyone's interested, just reach out through our website, longyards.com. Whether or not, you think you can add, maybe you want to join our team and you want to, be an asset on the team, or you want to secure long yards in your area, or even possibly invest. So yeah, just go to our website, longyards.com, and fill out a form, and then that's it. You can, you know, contact us from there and continue the conversation.
Awesome. Well, Chris, this was very fun. It was a little different from what I usually do, but it was very exciting. And I think I will be following up with you. And I look forward to seeing you again and watching you grow. And congratulations. It's just really awesome.
Thanks, Debbie. I appreciate that.
You're welcome. And that's a wrap with Mastering the Art of Real Estate. Thank you so much. I'm your host, Debbi DiMaggio.
Tune in each week for another episode of Mastering the Art of Real Estate with host Debbi DiMaggio. Here Fridays, noon Eastern on the Bold Brave TV network. Tune in to where real estate matters matter.